In this video, we'll continue our series on how to build a D&D campaign. Hello and welcome to Attacks of Opportunity. I'm your host, John Sprunk. In this video, we're going to continue the series on how to build your own campaign. If you've been following along, you know that our party has just completed tracking through the ruins of Ghostwood Keep, where they defeated the champion Lareth the Beautiful, only to discover that he is a pawn in a much bigger plot. We're at the midpoint in the campaign. The players are starting to put together the pieces to see the overall picture of what's happening behind the scenes. I believe they're 5th level at this point, so I'm starting to give them bigger and more crucial challenges as far as combat and role-playing go. The party returns to Fort Ogard with the captives that they rescued. The runaway apprentice goes back to his master, the sage. And this cements the idea that the players are the local heroes of the fort. And this plays out in a variety of ways, some big, some small. For example, shopkeepers and store owners know their names now. They might get discounts or even some perks just for being heroes. And also the VIPs in the fort now treat them more as peers and less as peons. And the sage, who's very grateful to have his apprentice back, talks to the party. He has been studying the clues that they have brought back from their adventures, as well as these mysterious weather patterns. And he believes that an old evil is resurfacing. The sage tells the party about a temple devoted to evil that was once situated out past the Ghostwood Forest. According to the accounts at the time, the temple's rise to power was punctuated with strange and dangerous weather patterns like they're seeing now. According to those accounts, the temple gathered an army of evil humanoids bent on conquering the entire region. But the good people of that time, at the Palmarge, banded together to stop this army and destroy the temple. They raided the dungeons beneath the temple, sealed everything up, and thought that that would be the end of it. Of course, then the hateful wars occurred, and evil humanoids from the north plowed down into the Palmarge and took everything over. Those good-aligned peoples, humans, dwarves, halflings, and so on, were either killed or pushed out. Now, about 150 years have passed, and knowledge of the temple has all but been lost until now. The sage believes that the temple is active once again and poses an existential threat to the Ulek states. The lady of the fort actually summons the party and asks them to undertake a perilous mission to seek out this temple and put it down once and for all if they can, and they agree. So the PCs set off again. This time they have a new companion. Matt Monk is either dead or on some horrible nightmarish plane of existence beyond their reach. So he rolls up a new character, a human paladin named Valdemar, who has come to the fort to fight evil. They make introductions and set off together. They have a couple encounters along the way. They fight a band of ogres in the Ghostwood Forest, and they also suffer a raging lightning storm which blasts them with bolts and thunder. And these encounters are pretty much just designed to keep the party focused and excited about the mission. They aren't too dangerous in and of themselves. They get past the Ghostwood to the river valley beyond, and there they find something odd, a village. Not too big, ramshackle, roughly built, mostly of wood, and the main inhabitants seem to be orcs, with some humans and other races mixed in. Like I said, the place is very ramshackle, very run down, very rustic, but there is a large fort overlooking the town, or the village. The players aren't sure how to handle this. They do a little recon, and they find some fields on the other side of the village where there are slaves being forced to work. Humans, elves, halflings, dwarves, the usual good aligned races, quote unquote. So the party discusses what to do. They decide to launch a rescue mission to try and free the slaves. So they kill a few guards and raid the farms and try to gather all the slaves together to take them away. Unfortunately, they find that the slaves aren't exactly keen on running away. The party isn't very big in their eyes, only 5 members, and some of these slaves are missing hands or feet or eyes. Evidently, they've been punished in the past for their transgressions, and they're afraid to run away only to be caught again and punished more. So, at the same time, the combat with the guards has alerted the fort, and a bunch of orcs start pouring out like a kicked beehive. The party has to act quickly, and they decide to, unfortunately, leave the slaves there, rescuing no one, and hightail it back out into the wilderness to hide. They do avoid the parties sent out to search for them, but they decide that now isn't a good time to try a full-scale raid on this village. They're going to keep on with their mission, go find the temple, deal with that, and then come back afterwards is their plan to probably attack the village and rescue the slaves. So they take off northeast. So why did I put this village here? Well, for one thing, this is the village of Nulb with some alterations, which appears in the actual super module, Temple of Elemental Evil. And I like the village, I wanted to include it somehow. Also, I like to put things in the path of the party that makes them think a little bit. They find a village of mainly orcs with some other races mixed in the middle of nowhere. What do? Do they attack it? Do they try to infiltrate it? Do they avoid it? If they do go inside and find things like slavery and other horrible things going on, how do they react? Can they just walk away? Are they forced by their morals to make a stand? Just things that they can role play and think out beyond just mindless combats. Had the party tried to just enter the town, they would have found a couple of dive bars, some ramshackle huts that serve as houses, a couple of shops. There are also some good aligned agents in this village, including a witch who is more than she seems. She has information that the party might find valuable about the temple, since she's been stationed out here. Also, she's got some potions that she might pass along if the party proves itself worthy and honorable. There are things they could find here if they chose to. But in this case, unfortunately, this group decided to make a quick attack and then got beat back. But every group handles this kind of thing differently, and that's what I like about it. The PCs continue onward, northeast to a huge swamp called the Witchlight Fens. I don't go into much detail with this. I give some description of how murky and scummy the marsh is, how unpleasant it is to travel through, but I don't put any fights in it or any big set pieces because the temple is the set piece, and I want them to get to it. At this point in the campaign, they've been ramping up to this for so long. There's just a pacing issue that I want to address, which is now they're finally here. Let's get to the big action, right? That's what they want, and that's what I want. I like to have all my combat encounters, especially, to have context. I'm not a big fan of the wandering monster, as you know, or just tossing in a fight for the fun of it. Every fight has to have a reason. Now, it could just be to give some atmosphere, like when they travel through the forest, the ogres attack them. Just because it's a deep, dark, forbidding place, I don't want the party to take it for granted. So I toss in a fight with some ogres and an oni, just to make them on edge a little bit. But I'm not dwelling on it too much. The same can be said of the swamp. Possibly I could have put a fight or two as they travel through it. But like I said, for pacing reasons, at this point, I want them to get to the temple. I want them to start investigating what's going on there. The party arrives at the temple. I go into a lot of detail here, my description, about how oppressive and evil it feels and looks and smells. Everything here is rank and rotten and falling down and dark. The colors are black and gray, very stark, very gothic. Once they get this point, they start to investigate. First, they make camp outside the temple, which is smart. They have a mule and a retainer they hired, I think, from the fort. They post them outside, make a campfire. That's their place to fall back to if things get hairy, to rest. Then they go inside. They scout the outer grounds first and find some outbuildings, including a large mausoleum, which is still standing. Leaving that for later, the party goes inside the main structure of the temple. This is like a cathedral in its structure. Very long, wide open, almost all of it one room. Lots of pillars, ancient candle holders, the remains of pews, that kind of thing. There are 2 stairways, one on either wing, which the party ignores for now. Instead, they go to the center where there's a big circular hole in the ground, like a well. They toss a lighted torch inside and watch it drop farther and farther until they can't see the light anymore, but they never hear it hit bottom. Not sure how to handle that, they go back outside to the mausoleum. They want to go down into the dungeon levels, obviously, but my party hates to leave anything behind that could ambush them from the rear, so they're going to explore the mausoleum first. They break inside and find 2 stone sarcophagi. They break inside those and find nothing, not even old bones, completely empty. This raises their suspicion. They keep searching and find a secret door, and there are some stairs leading down to a hidden chapel. The chapel is medium-sized, very plain, a couple of statues in black granite, but they can't quite make out the features of the statues, what they're supposed to be. At the far end, there is a raised dais with a throne, and on that throne is a skeleton propped up with a big sword resting against its knees. I stole that from a Conan story, for those familiar. And anyway, the party suspects it's a trap, and they are correct. When they go inside, secret doors open, and a lot of skeletons and zombies pour out. And the skeleton on the throne is actually a wight, which stands up and also attacks. It's a nice big battle. I like the atmosphere here. The undead and the evil chapel is very cool. And it's not a very difficult fight because the party has a cleric of the light and also a paladin in the group. So the 2 of them use their divine powers to make, mush of most of the undead. And the party wins. And they search. And they find a secret door. I have to pause here and state that sometimes a party, often in my experience, does things you don't expect. This is one of those times. The secret door leads down to a deep level of the dungeon. Its purpose is so that the leaders of the dungeon can come and go without trudging through all the levels in between the surface and their level down there. Anyway, it goes to a very dangerous place as the party skips 4 levels of dungeon right down to the depths. Why is it here? Well, one reason is it was in the original module. There is a similar secret door found in a tower that leads down to a deeper level of the dungeon. I like the possibilities it has for alternate ways to explore this dungeon. The Temple of Elemental Evil is rather linear in how it's built, especially how I've rebuilt it. And so having this little aside, this little extra entrance, gives it some flavor and some more possibilities. The downside is that it can lead to very dangerous encounters very quickly, but we'll get to that soon. The secret door leads to a tunnel that slopes down, 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 very deep into the earth, quite a ways. At least once or twice the party considers stopping and going back. Thinks there's something wrong about this scenario, but they decide to press on anyway. They get to another door, which leads to a medium-sized chamber. And as soon as they get through the secret door on the far side, torches spring to life. And they see in that chamber standing a large creature, humanoid, with blood-red skin, large leathery wings, and black horns on his brow. It's a classic devil. Well, the cleric decides that she doesn't believe what her eyes are telling her, so she's going to disbelieve. It's a call back to older versions of D&D when this happened a lot. If you wanted to defeat an illusion, you told the DM you didn't believe it, and you got a saving throw. The same thing happens here, and it's a great play by her because it is an illusion, and she does make her saving throw, and she sees through it that there is a flesh golem under the illusion of the devil, and the golem has these steel plates bolted to its body. Anyway, it starts to charge the party. Now, a flesh golem is a CR5 monster. For their level, it's not a especially challenging encounter. Even with the armor plating, they should be able to win relatively easy, taking no losses. What the party does not know, though, is that in adjacent rooms are a high-ranking wizard and his half-orc assassin bodyguard. They hear the fight and they come to investigate, and that's when things start to go bad. The assassin emerges from a secret door behind the party and attacks. And I let 2 rounds of combat go by. The party knows it's in trouble now. The front line is being mauled by the golem, and the assassin's just tearing up the casters in the back. No one has dropped yet, but the battle is getting very tense. I keep waiting for the party to retreat and go regroup on the surface. Even though the players are saying to each other that this fight is much tougher than they anticipated, the characters are determined to tough it out. I decide now is the time to change their minds. The high-ranking wizard comes out of his room and joins the fight. As an aside, this MP is someone that the players already know. In a previous campaign where they played evil anti-heroes, he was their boss, Lord Varich. He ultimately betrayed them as part of a bigger scheme developed by the demigod Ayuz, and the party ended up dying mostly by their own hand, but he gave them some help. Anyway, they got a kick out of seeing him again down here, but that joy was short-lived as he starts tossing spells at them. I started off easy, just some fireballs and lightning bolts, nothing too crazy yet, just to have them reconsider their options, maybe retreat, try a different path. But no, they do not choose to retreat, even in the face of this new threat, which is obviously far too powerful for them to handle. Instead, they double down. Valdemar charges the wizard, lasts about half of a round before he drops unconscious, and that starts to fall dominoes, one by one, until they're all dropped. And that, my friends, is a total party kill, courtesy of the Temple of Elemental Evil. So we talked afterwards about the encounter, going over the tactics and what happened. The party didn't expect that to happen so early, and neither did I, to tell you the truth. But they're veteran players, so after we talked out the encounter, they rolled up their sleeves, got the dice out, and started to plan out a new party. I asked them if they want to start a new campaign with a fresh start, and they said no. They want to come back here and finish this temple, which is what I really wanted them to do. So I let them start at 5th level with brand new characters, and I already had what I thought was a pretty good idea. You see, Alira's mother is a priestess, and she feels the moment that her daughter dies, and she immediately puts out a call for help, seeking heroes to come find out what happened and avenge her daughter's death. Enter the new PCs answering the call. Looking back, I always wonder how much of a total party kill is my fault. After all, I created the dungeon, the adventure. I placed that secret door with a tunnel that took them down to encounters that they couldn't handle at that level. And my party does excel at taking ways I don't expect. Their specialty is back doors, secret doors, rooftop entries. If you design a dungeon, they're going to find the way you didn't think they would get in to get in, almost every time. Maybe I should have anticipated that a little better. Granted, That part's on me. However, retreat was always an option. I had planned it that way from the start, that if they get involved in this particular combat, they might get their noses bloodied, but if they beat an orderly retreat, the NPCs would let them go. They find a different way to get in the temple, of which there are a couple, and keep on going. That's how I planned it might go. I didn't really think that they would just keep charging farther and farther into a combat once they knew they couldn't win it. But it happens. They get caught up in the moment. Happens to a lot of groups. And they might have thought that dying for a just cause, like trying to kill evil, was worth it. And that's how the first attempt at this campaign ended. The players made new characters, came back. At a higher level, I didn't force them to go through all the ramp-up adventures to get the temple. They arrive at the fort, knowing where they're going pretty much. They tromp through. They find the village again of the orcs and some other races of Nob, my little Mos Eisley in the middle of nowhere. This time they decide just to go right around it. They'll deal with that problem a different day. They get to the temple, where they find a ghoulish surprise. See, they find the temple and the mausoleum. And because they don't want to metagame, they do explore the mausoleum first, which is fine. They find the evil chapel below, which is fine. This time, though, there are different guardians. 5 new, fresh undead who look a little familiar. Yeah, they have to kill their old selves again. But it's mostly a fun battle. It's not too challenging. I didn't make it that bad for them. Just a little wink wink to the party. This time they find a secret door and decide, you know what? Let's not take that way. They go back inside to the main temple where there are some staircases, and they start to go down level by level and clear out the temple. I did redraw the temple a great deal, in fact. I love this module. I've said it many times in many different videos here. It is one of the all-time greats. However, it was written for a different time of D&D. A time where you could have 50 rooms on a level, each one having a different kind of monster that bears little resemblance to each other and has little reason to be beside each other. I redrew a lot of it. Also, the first level is great. That's the Earth Temple. If you're not familiar, the Temple of Elemental Evil has different dungeon levels with temples devoted to evil elementals, earth, air, fire, and water. I made each temple its own level. So the first level they go down is the Temple of Elemental Evil Earth. They fight some priests, a couple of earth elementals, some other evil humanoids. They go down. I think water was next. Completely redrew that. Put a river going through it. Put some aquatic encounters, that kind of stuff. Each temple has its own high priest. And they also have some powerful magic items, which the party accumulates. Minor relics, you might say. Anyway, the party gets through each of these evil shrines down to the greater temple at the bottom, where they find Sinestra, the demoness who runs the temple now, and they defeat her. And that is how the campaign was meant to end, with good conquering evil and everybody winning. Hooray. We had a lot of fun with this one. It took us probably 8 to 9 months of gaming at least. We loved it, and then we started a new campaign afterwards. And that's all we have for today. I know some of you have some questions. In this series, we really dwelled upon one party's experience as they went through a campaign I had built. I explained some of the finer points along the way. However, I have planned a video for next time, which is going to be about the actual breakdown of each point of campaign creation, from soup to nuts. Everything from the brainstorming that gives you your first premise of the campaign, to running a session 0, building the party, drawing up the maps, creating a storyline, picking the bad guys, all that stuff. So I'm going to try and cram it into one video here and sum up everything that I've learned in 40 some years of DMing about how to build a campaign. So please stay tuned. Also, please hit the subscribe button below. That means a whole lot to us. And if you can, share this video with your friends. We're a little channel right now. We're trying to grow, and your support means everything to us. Thank you so much. Have a great day from Attacks of Opportunity.